Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah. Then he wanted to sue us because of it.
Note that all council members are present. The Open Meetings Act is posted in the meeting room up on the wall there as to members of the public. Consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the City Council, will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests. Item A, approve agenda as submitted. Item B, receive and place on file all notices pertaining to this meeting. Item C, receive and place on file all materials having any bearing on this meeting. Item D, approval of minutes of the regular meeting on November 6, 2023, as on file with the City Clerk's office. Item E, Treasurer's Report of Claims in the amount of $496,916.78. F, approval of Boswell Report of Claims in the amount of $68,368.48. Item G, approval write-off of ambulance bad debts. Item H, approval of pay request number 3 in the amount of $85,804.55 and change order number 4, increase in the amount of $38,831.11 to Philip Kokoski Construction and Trenching Incorporated for the Water Systems Improvement Electrical Upgrades Project as part of the 2021 Water SRF projects as recommended by the Board of Public Works. Item I, refer to claim of Brian and Monica Noble regarding damage to their personal property to the city attorney and the city insurance carrier for review and disposition. And item J, resolution number 7173, executing the renewal of excess stop loss agreement with QBE Insurance Corporation for renewal option 1 to renew the excess stop loss agreement for the city's self-funded employee health program or plan. Anybody want anything taken off? Seeing none, Mr. McLean.
I move the items listed under the consent agenda be approved, accepted, and ratified as presented.
Second.
Your vote, please. And that passes 8-0. Public hearings and bids. We do have a public hearing for the purpose of considering the acquisition of real property from Jerry E. Busey and Mary E. Bartles Busey, husband and wife, describes as follows. Lot 11, Block 2, Teeman Subdivision, Beatrice, Gage County, Nebraska, commonly known as 1908 Lincoln Street.
So yes, the public hearing tonight is for the city to purchase 1908 Lincoln Street. Jerry and Mary Busey approached the city, asked us if we would be interested in acquiring their property. We then negotiate a price to see before you tonight is $225,000. Closing would occur sometime in December as we work towards getting all the necessary paperwork done, assuming it passes tonight. Outside of that, answer any questions anybody might have about this particular property.
Any from the council? From the public?
My name is Aaron Schoen, rural Philly, Nebraska. I do own property here in Beatrice, though, so I am a taxpayer. My question to you guys is, what is your plans for this property?
At this time, we're planning ahead for the future. We will own the Lincoln School. We are making sure that we're in a position that if we need to do anything with Lincoln Street or 19th Street, we have the capabilities of doing that without affecting homeowners in the area.
Fair enough. I just remember the very last time you purchased the next door property, you said you had no plans for it in the future. You can recheck your records back on the last meeting. So to me, it sounds a little odd you're trying to buy property with no plans to move along in the future. Essentially, you should just tell the public that you're planning or try to do a roundabout there, and no one's saying that. You're not being honest with us.
I'll disagree with you. Whether there's a roundabout there or not has not been decided. We do know that it's in part of the Lincoln plan, but there's also no funding, and there's other options we can look at that intersection other than roundabouts as well. So,
and I'm also curious, Tobias keeps telling us that they approached him or this city to purchase that property. I don't know a single person in the city of Beatrice that approaches the city to sell property. They usually approach a realtor. So to me, that doesn't hold water on this case.
I will tell you that they reached out to the city and offered our home, their home for sale. I do know that.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Sure, he works for the city. He works for the Clean City. He's here all the time.
All right, with no more discussion, let's close the hearing.
I move the public hearing be closed at 7:05 p.m.
Second.
Your vote, please. And it passes 8-0. All right. Resolution number 7174, executing the contract for sale of real estate and all necessary documents to acquire real estate from Jerry E. Busey and Mary E. Barters Busey.
I move the resolution number 7174 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just a resolution to authorize the approval of the contract that we just discussed.
Seeing no further discussion, your vote, please. That passes 8-0. Okay, item B, resolution number 7175, executing an engagement letter for professional services between the city and Homestead Land Company to provide appraisal services for property commonly known as 1908 Lincoln Street.
I move the resolution number 7175 be passed and adopted.
Second.
State statute says anytime the city buys property valued at more than $100,000, we have to have an appraisal done. We went out and got some quotes from a couple of different appraisers, and the low quote we received this time was from Homestead Land Company, $550. They said the appraisal will be done in the next 2 weeks.
You set a price with these people. Now, if they do an appraisal and they comes out and it appraises less than what their asking price is, what are we going to do? We're going to go back and renegotiate it, or we're just going to pay them the price that we've negotiated?
You would have to honor the contract that you approved tonight, which would be for $225,000.
And I'll say too, on the last appraisal we had on the other previous property was within $1,000 or $2,000 of what we had settled on, so.
From the public.
Mitch Meeky, 210 Granville Avenue. I'm going to agree with Mr. Kerr. I mean, how many of you would buy a property and sign a contract without an appraisal first? It just doesn't seem like good business, especially not when it's your money, because it's taxpayer money. And even if it's with $1,000 or $2 or $1,000 or $2,000, would you buy a home that's valued at $2,000 or $3,000 less than what you agreed to pay for it? I mean, and I'm going to agree with Mr. Schoen. You bought Lincoln Elementary for what, $200,000. You're buying this house for $200,000. How much was Lincoln? Because you bought all 3 or 4 of the Lincoln, the elementary schools from the school system. So wasn't it 4 schools for $800,000? Am I wrong?
Bob?
About, I think somewhere in there.
I think I can answer that for him.
Okay.
People always buy houses before they get an appraisal. They never get an appraisal before they make an offer, and if the offer is accepted, they have to get an appraisal.
Okay, I will disagree with you because I did get an appraisal.
Well, I've got 25 years experience that says you can disagree all you want, but you're wrong.
Well, I'm telling you what I did. I got an appraisal before I bought a house.
Well, you're one of the
few.
One that I've ever heard of did that.
And that's fine. So you did purchase the high school, if you average it out, about $200,000. This house is $225,000. I don't know what the bids are on the other one at 1902. So let's say it's comparable, $150,000, whatever. So the $550,000 you're spending for property for the future, but there's no plan for it yet. With all due respect, I understand there's things that I don't know about the city council, but $550,000 to buy 3 properties for the possible future of we don't know what's going to happen. That just seems a little outrageous. And I don't know if you can answer this question, but are the plans for, let's say specifically Lincoln School, since that's the intersection we're talking about, is that going to be tore down? Or what was the plan since you bought the property already? Is it going to be tore down? Or is the city going to keep it up? Or we don't know because we haven't got that far ahead.
Which property?
Lincoln School.
Oh, Lincoln School. We don't control Lincoln School yet.
Right.
I guess it's really going to depend on the condition, but I would say tearing it down is a very strong possibility.
Okay, so in that negotiation, if they find asbestos in that school, which they probably will, I know it's one of the newer ones, then the city of Beatrice is going to have to pay for that.
That is
the removal if they're going to tear it down.
That is correct.
The remediation. So on a building that size, that's not going to be cheap either. And so it's just, to me, and I can speak for the few people that I've talked about it with, I didn't know the price of this house until now. Minimum $550,000 for the possible future of this single intersection, but there's no plans for it. I disagree with it completely. This isn't, I understand the city has expenses, listed in here, treasury reported claims, almost $500,000. I get all that. But to buy property to maybe do something with it in the future and spend that amount of money in a town of Beatrice's size, I just don't see that's good business, for lack of a better term.
So I can tell you too, if you were to condemn all these things, the process is much longer, much more expensive. So that's kind of what you're hedging your bet on, is that property values will continue to increase and that the legal expenses that you have to go through and the time it takes for the acquisition of those through condemnation or eminent domain would be much higher.
Right. So by you saying that, makes me think there is talk, if not a plan for the future. Otherwise, why would you even want to buy those two houses? The school, I can understand. I get the school, but the two houses on that street I don't get for possible future improvements or whatever it is. Because, there's been meetings about Lincoln, the road plan from Highway, from 6th Street all the way to 19th or maybe even to 33rd. And now the city council, I don't know exactly who's paying the 60 and who's paying the 40 for the however many millions of dollars it's going to be Lincoln and 33rd.
The school actually is something that is not part of this discussion.
Right.
So we need to change back to the appraisal.
Right. Okay, I apologize.
That's no problem.
That the city is going to spend money redoing Lincoln Street because of the new school, right?
If that's what the traffic study points out, yes. I mean, one of the things we don't know is whether the traffic pattern is going to change when that new school puts up. Right. But when we're in the position to be able to be in a positive position where we're ahead of the curve, we will end up saving money in the future for the city of Beatrice.
Again, this is an opportunity for me to voice my opposition, and I get it. Minimum conservative, I think everybody will agree, is $550,000, and it's probably $50,000 to $100,000 more than that we're spending on those three properties.
So, let me answer Mr. Schoen's question before I answer your question.
That's fine.
So, Jerry Busey runs Beatrice Clean City. He's here he has contact with Tobias daily. He's in and out of the city offices all the time. He did approach the city. He didn't have to go through a realtor. Right now we have a willing seller and a willing buyer, right? We're trying to buy something for the future in case we need it. If Mr. Busey and him and his wife, they're moving from Beatrice, going closer to their family, if he would sell that to somebody else, you or Mr. Schoen or someone else, and the city would have to buy it down the road here to improve that area, then you don't have a willing buyer and willing seller. Just like the city attorney explained to you that we'd have to go through a condemnation process to take your property or to take his property that he bought it. It would cost us more. It would cost you more. You've just bought a house. I'm here for a year or 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is, and now you're forcing out of my home. We're just trying to stay ahead of that. Planning. Stop. Let me finish. So Gary explained to you that you don't get an appraisal all the time, and it was discussed. I know I live about 3 blocks from here. Our homes, Busey's home and their home, we're similar size. It's in good condition. I think we're buying an undervalued property. So you could wait to appease all the questions, and you could spend more, or you could do this now and plan ahead. So your choice. Did that answer any of that?
Not really,
Okay.
because seems to be a lot of ifs in there.
Sure. There's a lot of ifs in everything, and we're trying to make those plans for the future. And there's a lot of ifs in future plans.
Right, there is. There are.
So if you'd like, I think what you're telling us is you want us to deal in crisis management. When it has to be done, then do it, but only do it if it has to be done. And that's not the way to do it. A fiscally responsible job here. That's not to get the best bang for your buck. So it's not crisis management here. It's planning for the future. We get criticized if you don't. You get criticized if you do. Give you a perfect example of it. When the city collectively here, when we bought what is now going to be the next landfill, we had meeting after meeting after meeting. People couldn't understand why we were doing it. Now, if we'd have to go purchase that property now and do all the rest of the things we have to do, we'd be paying 10 times what we did now. I guess what I'm telling you is that in some instances, you just have to trust us. And this is one of those. We're planning for the future. We're not doing anything nefarious. We're not trying to do anything sneaky. We're not trying to cut anybody out. Any of that. We're trying to plan for the future.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else? If not, your vote, please. That passes. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Rich?
What?
Turned off.
Oh.
8-0. Item C, resolution number 7176, executing the First Amendment to the lease agreement between the city and AMT Management, LLC.
I move the resolution number 7176 be passed and adopted.
Second.
This is another lease out at the airport that we're working on transferring from the airport over to the city of Beatrice. This one is with Tractor Supply. That's probably what everybody knows it as. It started in December of 2003. It originally was a 15-year term. It calls for 7 additional 5-year terms. So a little lengthier contract. Rents increase 5% every 5 years. That was in the original 2003 contract that was drafted and approved by the airport. And so today you're at approximately $29,200 per year for rent is what AMT pays the airport. So the only thing we're doing on this one is transferring again from the airport over to the city of Beatrice.
Discussion from the public. Your vote, please. That passes 8-0. Resolution number 7177, executing a sponsorship agreement with First State Bank, Nebraska for Hannibal Park.
I move the resolution number 7177 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Another sponsorship agreement for improvements out at Hannibal Park powered by Pinnacle Bank. This one is with First State Bank. It's for $1,250 per year for 3 years for 2 outfield signs is what they are going with. The next question you're going to ask me is where we at grand total. Grand total, we have $413,000 pledged over the next 10 years for Hannibal Park.
Discussion. Public.
Yeah, Toby. What dollar amount do you have to reach at Hannibal Park before you start giving me some for West Court?
For where at on West Court?
No, West Court.
Ball fields.
West Scott Ball Fields? Again, we continue to have conversations with West Scott and the Bullets organization over there to see what improvements we can make. Being in a floodplain does hinder the improvements that can be made there, but we continue to look to see what we can do.
It would be nice.
All right, your vote, please. Passes 8-0. Resolution number 7178, approving the construction contract award for Project 008 in the amount of $10,340 as part of the CDBG Owner-Occupied Housing Rehab Project number 21 HO 36035.
I move the resolution number 7178 be passed and adopted.
Second.
This resolution and the next two are part of our owner-occupied rehab grant that we applied for and received. SEND is administering it. Once again, it's one of those grants where we're not allowed to know the property and we're not allowed to know the owner of it until after you guys pass and approve things, hopefully tonight. That has to do with trying to make sure that we don't pick and choose who wins and loses in this particular grant. So as you see, though, all three of the contractors tonight that are being proposed for awards are all local contractors. So that's been a change from previous ones. They got some local guys to bid on these moving forward. After these three are approved, we have $118,000 remaining of grant funds available. And SEND thinks when we're all done, we'll get between about 18 and 20 houses repaired as a result of this grant.
Cool. Discussion from the public. Your vote, please. Passes 8-0. Resolution number 7179, approving the construction contract award for Project 009 in the amount of $24,900 as part of the CDBG Owner-Occupied Housing Rehab Project number 21 HO 36035.
I move the resolution number 7179 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Same thing, same type of grant, same project, different house. I don't know what the house is, though. Any other questions you have?
Bob. So just, it's not really a question for Tobias, but maybe you could explain all these grants. They're smaller amounts and where they start and where they end. So
these particular grants, everything has to be below $24,999. And so I know we kind of chuckled some that came up in previous times, they were right at $24,999. But that's just what federal law says. Different rules kick in at $25,000. That's why they purposely keep them under. The first one tonight was $10,000. The next two there were $24,900, so they're right up against it. Essentially, what SEND does is they go and look at the house. They see what work they can get done for that $25,000 number, and then put it out for bid. And that's kind of how there may be more repairs necessary at those houses, but this is what they can get done the first time through at that $25,000 mark.
yeah, I just thought it would be nice to have it explained again to the public. I know you do it. So.
All right. Your vote, please. That passes 8-0. Resolution number 7180, approving the construction contract award for project number 015 in the amount of $24,900 as part of the CDBG Owner-Occupied Housing Rehab Project number 21 HO 36035.
I move the resolution number 7180 be passed and adopted.
Second.
And I assume this is the same thing.
Correct. Same thing, different house.
All right. Gentlemen, your vote, please. And that passes 8-0. Resolution number 7181, extending the completion date for the public improvements to be made upon Northgate Crossing 3rd Edition pursuant to the subdivision improvement agreement with Northgate Investment Company, LLC.
I move the resolution number 7181 be passed and adopted.
Second.
In May of 2021, the city entered into a subdivision improvement agreement with the developer, in this case, Northgate Investment LLC, to outline what public improvements need to be made out north of the hospital. So you've got Rare Earth Salts, which is to the west, and then Element Avenue is the street that's there, and then to the right is the property that was just sold, or to the east is the property that was just sold to the NRD here recently. In that subdivision improvement agreement, the developer is responsible for the grading, water main, storm sewer, paving, and street lights. At that point, we estimate those to be about $289,000 worth of improvements. They have put up a collateral at a local bank to make sure those improvements get done. Under the subdivision improvement agreement, they had 30 months to make the improvements. 30 months runs out in November of this year. And they says that the city council can grant a 1-year extension. The developer has asked for that year-long extension to give them an opportunity to get the improvements made this upcoming spring. Again, they're also the ones building the new building for the NRD. which is going to move out there in the spring, so they have some incentive to make sure the improvements get done. I think everything, we've met with them several times, things are designed, we're just simply waiting for construction to start, and we anticipate to start this spring.
Have they done anything out there?
No, for the longest time they didn't have a buyer, and then they worked through the NRD, getting that all situated and sold and purchased and taken care of there, and so now they're ready to move forward with the actual development of the improvements out there.
Discussion from the public. Seeing none, your vote, please. That passes 8-0. Resolution number 7182, executing the request of reconveyance and the deed of reconveyance along with all their necessary documents to terminate the deed of trust for the contract of sale for real estate dated April 18th, 2022 between the city and Kurt Hageman.
I move the resolution number 7182 be passed and adopted.
Second.
So Mr. Hagerman, we had a contract with him for him to purchase 631 Bismarck on the west side of town for us. That contract called for him to pay $2,000 down. Then there was an additional payment of $8,000 if he did not get a house completed by October 31st of this year. The house is not completed, and so he came in and wrote a check for the additional $8,000 payment pursuant to his contract. So he has satisfied all the terms of his real estate contract with us, and so that's why we're asking you tonight to release all the collateral, the deed of trust, promissory note, all the other stuff, because he has satisfied his terms.
Discussion needed anywhere? If not, your vote, please. That passes 8-0. Move on to ordinances. Ordinance amending section 2-389 of the Beatrice City Code regarding irresponsible bidders. If no action was taken tonight, it'll be read by title once. To take action tonight, rules are suspended and read by number. A motion to suspend the rules is not debatable.
I move that said ordinance be given number 23-33, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
Your vote, please. That passes 8-0. Ordinance number 2333 by number the first time, 2333 the second time, 2333 the third and final time.
I move that ordinance number 23-33 be passed and approved.
Second.
Section 2-389, our irresponsible bidder section, previously had stated that, or what it says as at this time, it says if you have unpaid debts owed to the city, you can be declared an irresponsible bidder. We're asking for some clarification. Just says that then it would be changed to read that if you're a delinquent debt or bill to the city, the Board of Public Works, MARS, or any other entity owned or operated by the city, you can be declared an irresponsible bidder. And we define delinquent in this case to mean something that's more than 30 days past due. So again, same general feel of what was there before. We're just trying to add some additional language to just clarify a few things.
Discussion.
I mean, I can read and understand why you expanded this for sure, but why did we change section B there? So we no longer provide notice to the contractor if we're going to do this to them?
Because they'll have notice. We'll send them notice. It just won't be a public hearing. A public hearing in a city council setting requires notification 10 days in advance.
I know that.
And so that's why we removed the public hearing portion of it.
So I would hope that when we pass this in a couple of weeks or whatever, that we at least send that out, because not everybody attends these meetings and stuff or pays attention. We get it out to all of our bidders, right? I mean, I'm in favor of this, but we need to make sure that people know this. And I can sure see this, well, is there a possibility that it would exist, T, that we do a project and we decide that they're irresponsible and we schedule a meeting with the city council and they won't know about it?
No, we would certainly want to make sure we have them notice, because
you guys will make sure that they get notified and stuff, I'm sure,
They'll
right?
also receive notice of the delinquent bill or debt as well prior to.
Okay. Okay.
James Nelson, 1025 North 6th Street, Beatrice, Nebraska. Mr. Doyle, I appreciate you bringing up this matter because you're deleting in Section B the requirement to provide 10 days written notice of the hearing to the person that you're going to blacklist. My question is, does it include a delinquent ambulance bill that's pending an insurance payment?
Obviously, if it's a pending insurance payment, it would not be considered delinquent this time.
Well, I would disagree with you, Mr. Templemeyer, because the city of Beatrice files claims in estates while it's pending insurance payment, and then we have to go through that process. So it's any delinquent bill with the city of Beatrice, and you're removing the notice to the person that you're going to blacklist in this matter. And I would oppose taking that section out of there. So it's not just cleaning up and defining language. You are removing notice to the public before they can't do business with the city. And I would hope that you would not keep this train moving by suspending the rules once again, as you usually do, and read it 3 times numbers only, because I don't think the public knows that you're removing a notice requirement for them.
I would just object to the term blacklist.
Yes, me too.
I don't think that was a very good thing to say here, and that's not the intent. When the ordinance committee looked at this, that was not the intent. And if somebody can't pay their bill to the city of Beatrice, why do we want to keep doing business with them? And this has happened, and it's probably going to happen again if we don't pass this ordinance. And I think we're all tired of this happening.
Gary, your committee looked at this?
Yes,
and
every one of these tonight.
Perfect. Thanks.
Gary, as I read through this, it was my assumption that you were trying to protect the company a little bit so you don't have to drag them here in front of the council publicly and say, you didn't pay your bill. Can you explain that part of it? Am I correct in that?
That's absolutely correct.
Yes.
Okay. I thought it was eliminated to protect the company. It's obviously they're not going to be put on a no bid list or an unqualified bidder without some kind of notification from the city. The city manager, the city attorney, none of this happens in a vacuum. They know that they're not doing it. It was my assumption is that you were trying to save that company or that business or that person the embarrassment of being in front of the city council, in front of the public that said you didn't pay your bill.
That's exactly right.
All right.
And Section B still requires them to come to the city council.
Yeah.
And Terry, to be honest with you, when we went through this thing, we brought up certain scenarios.
Yep.
And
I'm in favor of the ordinance. I just think if they owe us money, we should be making them pay it before they become. We give them a bunch of bids, but they're still having to come before the city council. It's not going to be in the form of a public hearing.
Yeah, the council is the one who has to declare them an irresponsible bidder, not administration.
Yeah, but that's way down the road. When it gets to the council and we make them an irresponsible bidder, they've had a lot of opportunities to do it quietly before we do it publicly. And I appreciate that part of it from your committee, Gary.
My point was just, you guys said they're going to get notice and stuff. That's all I care. Yep. We don't want somebody is out of town on vacation or something and we have a deal here and all of a sudden they get a project and zip from underneath them. That's all.
Okay. Seeing no more discussion, your vote, please. And that passes 8-0. Next ordinance is Section 13.1 of the Beatrice City Code regarding bonds and liability insurance for the amusement rides, to repeal Section 13.2 regarding street carnivals, and Section 2030 regarding annual reports by the Board of Public Works. Once again, if no action is taken tonight, it'll be read one time. To take action tonight, the rules are suspended and then read by number 3 times tonight. A motion to suspend the rules is not debatable.
I move that said ordinance be given number 23-34, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
Your vote, please. And that passes 8-0. Ordinance number 2334 by number the first time, 2334 the second time, and number 2334 the third and final time.
I move that ordinance number 2334 be passed and approved.
Second.
These are 3 code sections that the Code Committee has reviewed and is recommending removal or deletion from the City Code on. 13-1 and 13-2 both deal with amusement rides, street carnivals, those types of things. Those code sections are from the 1970s, indicate that if you're going to have such amusement rides or street carnivals, you have to get permission from the mayor, put up a bond. Nobody can recall the last time we had some of these in town. Generally, they're part of another type of festivity, and those anymore are then granted permission by this body, either from renting out the park, or we have ways, if you want to close down a certain street, there's a process to do that. And so these just don't happen anymore. These aren't part of our normal procedures. And then 20-30 talks about an annual report that the Board of Public Works is supposed to make to the City Council. Again, this is from the 1970s. That report hasn't been done for quite some time. That's back from the old days when the city and the BPW were very much separate entities. But now, since they, one, have one person in charge, but 2, because both of them work so well together anymore, having that required in that annual report just doesn't seem to make sense anymore. Because quite honestly, projects come to you quite frequently. I mean, tonight you had another payment on another project going on, and so the City Council's kept aware of what's going on with BPW, and so we just thought this one also was outdated and could be repealed.
This one and the next one both went through the committee, and so we brought them forward.
Any discussion? Public? Seeing none, your vote, please. That passes 8-0. And we have ordinance adding Article XIX and Section 16,660 through 16,671, inclusive to Chapter 16 of the Beatrice City Code regarding ATVs and UTVs, and to repeal ordinance number 23-6, passed and adopted on April 3rd, 2023. If no action is taken tonight, it'll be read by title once. To take action tonight, the rules will be suspended and read by number 3 times tonight. A motion to suspend the rules are not debatable.
I move that said ordinance be given number 23-35, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
Your vote, please. And that passes 8-0. Ordinance number 2335 by number the first time, 2335 the second time, and 2335 the third and final time.
I move that ordinance number 2335 be passed and approved.
Second.
So we have 2 things going on with this particular ordinance. The first one is starting in January, we'll require that UTVs be registered. What we're recommending here is an exemption be included in the registration for contractors that are doing work for the city, the county, or the state of Nebraska. Quite honestly, we've had Myers Construction in town for a while now. They've got UTVs in town. We just started asking ourselves why require them to come in and get registered. They still have to follow the safety procedures, but why require the registration when that contractor is going to be back out of town here relatively soon? And so that's why we look to add that particular exemption. The other thing we're doing in this is when we went back to go change that particular section, we noticed that we misnumbered the ordinance the first time. It should have been 16-660, and instead we had 16-60. So we misnumbered them, and so if in the event we have to go to court or prosecute anybody or pull up a certified copy of the ordinance. We want to make sure they have the right numbering system, and so that's why we are recommending tonight that you repeal the entire ordinance for the first time and reapply it this time with the correct numbering system that we messed up the first time we did it.
Discussion. And yes, this was approved by the ordinance committee. From the audience.
James Nelson, 1025 North 6th Street, Beatrice. I guess I would address this to Mr. Fralin, who's the resident expert on UTVs. I would draw your attention to section 16-661, subsection 5. I've noticed since this ordinance was initially passed, there has been UTVs in Beatrice on the streets. Some of them with flags, some of them without. What's the height of a UTV with their roll bars? It's between 5 and 6 feet, and your ordinance says that it has to have a safety flag no less than 5 feet. I've seen several UTVs with a flag, if you look at it, that is below the roll bars. If the whole purpose of the flag is for safety, I would assume it would be above the roll bars.
To answer your question, Mr. Nelson, we copied the state statute, which requires it to be 60 inches.
Well, I'm going for common sense rather than just copying something. If the whole idea is to have a safety flag that you can see, I would think that it would be above the roll bar. My suggestion would be that you revise that section to put 2 feet above and not less than 5 feet above the ground. I'm going from common sense rather than just duplicating one that doesn't make sense.
Thank you.
Bob, wouldn't that be a law enforcement issue?
No, because as long as their flag is 60 inches above the ground, they fall within the statute. So it's, you can pick pepper out of hay if you want to. It is a safety feature. The flag is on there. It's only required to be at 60 inches at a minimum level. There is no maximum height. I don't know what else you want me to say. I don't disagree with what Mr. Nelson says. When we did our thing down at the auditorium, I believe he's sitting here tonight, maybe not. Mine was 61 inches, and it was difficult to see, but mine telescoped higher. So it's all on the individual. If I put my UTV on the street, it would be well above my roll bars. So, but.
So, I mean, it is something that we can look at at a different point in time. I think some of these other items in here, especially the numbering, needs to get taken action tonight, but it is something that we can refer back again and have the ordinance committee look at it again.
I think the best time to look at it is when we adopt the registration stuff. We can definitely look at putting a different required height in there that has to be so many inches above the roll bars. So,
thank you. All right, gentlemen, your vote, please. That passes 8-0. Okay, the purpose of tonight is a public forum. The purpose of public forum is for the presentation of an item by the general public to the council for consideration at a later date. No discussion or action will be taken by the city council at this time. Anyone here for the public forum? If not, we'll move on to discussions and reports. And we have one tonight, the city administrator's monthly report.
Just a couple of highlights that are in the report there. One is we do have RFPs currently outstanding for Tributary 44 and for the Belvedere drainage areas. We were able to get grants for those. Our RFPs are out. I think they're due back December 4th, and then hopefully bring something to this council in December or early January. selecting an engineer to do those studies, but we are working on those. We are working on the trail out to the homestead. As you recall, that grant got awarded. We are working on that process. Recently, we learned that the state is looking to replace the bridges on the way out to the homestead. So I asked the question, well, when you replace the bridge, can you simply put on, for lack of a better term, a sidewalk on the side of it, rather than having your bridge and our bridge next to each other? And the state has gotten back and said they agree. So they will look to change their bridge system to include sidewalks that would then accompany the trail as well. So rather than having two separate bridges all the way out to the homestead. And then finally, we were notified last week on Friday that we received another downtown revitalization grant for $435,000. Send helped us write this particular grant, and they'll help us administer this one. And so again, we'll go through that same process. We have some pre-applications, and we'll have a committee review them, bring recommendations to this body. But we are months away from having a contract with the state and all those other hoops we have to jump through. But we'll look to get that up and running probably in the summer of '24.
Questions?
What, are you going to vote right now? Is that what you're going to do?
Nothing to vote on.
This is
Are we just talking right now?
Yeah, this is the city administrator report.
Okay. Is he done?
Sure.
Okay.
When we talk more,
I just didn't want to go vote now. So this isn't a big deal. It's just one I have a question on, the other one's maybe a comment. Well, first off, T, thank you for doing this. Okay, I know it takes work to do it. I know you don't have to do it, but it's a way of us not having to call your butt every 10 minutes, about something. Anyway, please, can you update for me and the people that are new to the council, what's the scoop on the comprehensive plan? We've had that in there ever since I've been here. It says we're applying for a grant, 50 grand. I don't know how we're going to get a comprehensive plan for 50 grand, but have we actually applied for a grant someplace to do that or not? And
yes, so our comprehensive plan, if anybody is familiar with it, was written in 2001. I think it was then updated in 06, and so it's old. It needs to be replaced, needs to be redone. We did look at a grant last year. We had in the budget to do it last fiscal year. That grant was unsuccessful. I've talked to Sind about trying to find other avenues to find grant funding to help us write that. A comprehensive plan is probably going to be close to $100,000. So that's why we're trying to see what we can find. We've been unsuccessful in finding grant funds at this point, which is why it remains on the list as an item we're continuing to pursue.
Okay. I appreciate it being on there. I do. The other is just an observation. Under code violations, so far this year we're at 848 compared to 670 last year. Let's see, that's about 27% or something increase we've had. So that department is working. I want to thank them for all the work that they're doing for all this stuff, trying to keep these things straight. And you too. Following up on it, Taylor. Appreciate it. That's it.
Okay. On the trail to the homestead, I've had some emails in the past, and I just said that now is not the time for me to answer any questions or argue. Is there a finalized map on where the trail is going to be and what landowners between here and the homestead are affected?
No, there's not even a preliminary. I mean, we've got a sketch drawing, but by no means is it down to close to having an idea of which property owners will be impacted, and if so, how much. No.
Yeah, I've had those same conversations. I don't know who's contacted you, but I've had those same conversations. I've had conversations with several landowners between here and there, and the way I've explained it to them, so tell me if I've done it wrong. So the way I've explained it to them is that if you're building a house, this is your sketch that you and your wife did on the kitchen table that you've taken to your builder, and so that's the stage that we're at now. Mm-hmm. And so there's 2 or 3 more stages where we'll actually make until they get the final drawing that they know what they're going to be building. So I've told them all to be very aware of what's going on, but not to panic because it may or may not affect them in the final drawing. Because I have some personal views of how I'd like to see it done. So I'm going to be pushing for that to have some things change from what the sketch is so far. So
I think we've all got those phone calls.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I would just note that obviously with the change in the state's position on the bridges, that'll change the alignment of the trail because,
right.
I mean, if it gets, the bridge is going to be close to obviously where the road's at, and so the the sidewalk then will be close to where the road's at those bridge points, and so you're going to see that then also impact the design. And so that's why I have not seen anything close to a drawing for what they look like with the bridges now being involved.
I was just trying to save us all a bunch of phone calls.
Well, that's not going to happen. And it can be changed right up until the time they start pouring concrete.
Correct.
Anything else? If not, we will have a regular city council meeting in these chambers at 7 p.m. on December 4th, 2023. There may or may not be a work session on December 18th at 6 p.m. We are going to go into executive session for potential litigation. So, Mr. McLean, please take us into executive session.
I move that Beatrice City Council go into closed session at 7:50 p.m. for the protection of public interest to discuss potential litigation.
Second.
And it passes 8-0. Thank you all who attended.